All right, it is indeed a very, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It is the 17th of March 2023. Tarehe 17 mwezi wa 3 mwaka 2023. Ndio kwamba uko salama. It's another Monday, the CommonCents edition of the 17th of March 2023. Kama kawaida, when you join in, please like when you like, we get to know. Please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Good to see you again. I haven't seen you guys since the Easter holiday, so I'm very happy to see you again this Monday. And thanks for those guys who have been doing a good job as well. We'll see who is in here and holding fort for us. Joel Rama on Diaspora Edition, who was holding it on Thursday. Not on Friday on Sharia Wiki. Thank you so much for standing in this week, and I hope you had a very great weekend. A good Monday morning. All right. This morning we want to speak about your finances for the longest time. And you know what happens on Mondays, usually talk about your life and money. Life and money, talk about life and money. And we want to give you some common sense as you start off your week. I'll be with Roy Okonji this morning, and we'll be talking about your finances, your financial health. And also the biggest question that has been here is, every time tunasema uchumi ni mbaya. Kuuliza mtu sasa mwambie nitumie dhao. Yanakwambia uchumi ni mbaya. Uchumi ni mbaya. And for the longest time nimesikia hiyo kitu uchumi ni mbaya. Hata babu yako alikuwa anasemanga uchumi ni mbaya. When we were still buying using cowrie shares, and when they were still doing barter trade. So I would also like to understand, uchumi inakuanga mbaya ama ni hesabu yako ndio mbaya? We'll have that conversation shortly. Lakini kama kawaida, acha tuende mbele za Mungu tuombe, alafu tukirudi basi tunakuja kuona nani ameweza kuamka asubuhi ya leo. Alright, mighty Father, we come before you this morning. We thank you for this new week. We thank you for the weekend that has been. We thank you for another opportunity to converge here this morning and have this conversation. I thank you for every tackler who has joined us this morning, and for every meaningful engagement that they make us have every single morning. And we say we are because they are, and you may bless them this morning as they join us at their individual levels. As you start up with us, when we finish, glory and honor shall come back to your name. For we pray, trusting and believing. Amen. And by the way, this week again, we hit only on, was it on Friday? Was it on Friday or Thursday? We hit 400,000 followers on Facebook. Thank you so much for making us who you are. And also, since Friday to date, we've already added 1,800 followers. So you guys are really amazing. Thank you so much for making us happen every single day, and for making us who we are. We say the tackle is because you are. You're actually the true spirit of Ubuntu. You build us all the way from zero, and now we are at over 400,000 followers. Thank you so much for joining us. Also this morning, when you join in, please like when you like, we get to know that you're watching us. That way, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. When you join in, please like when you like, we get to know that you're watching us. And that way, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Meanwhile, please clap for yourself for being part of this beautiful platform that we are. Climate Change Africa, good morning to you. Keep up the good work. Meanwhile, plant trees, take part in climate change mitigation measures. Plant trees, make a beautiful place for yourself and generations. Come to panda miti. Follow climate. Nitakuja mahali popote wanapanda miti, tafadhali niite hapo. Anywhere where you're doing any climate change programs, please ensure that you can reach out to me. Nitakuja hapa nipande miti. All right. Dennis Kirui tuned in. Asante sana Penny Class Lakisha. Good morning, Bitok from Eldoret. Chepkanga Massive. Let us know where you're joining us from this morning. Edwin Mudosi, great job. Thank you. Andrew Muteki, morning to Bitok, listening from Tharaka Nithi County. Atwa Tharaka Nithi County, Meru. Mambo vipi? I hope you're doing well. Moses Gekita, good to see you, my brother. And also thank you for being a top engager this week. Good morning, Gerald, happy new week. Tuned in for financial lessons. Say hi to Coach Roy. Asante. Henry Mutaki, keep up the good work. Catching from Tharaka Nithi, help me get a job, please. Bitok, I'm agribusiness management graduate from Great Lakes University of Kisumu. Tajaribu ndugu yangu. Moses Gita, congratulations for hitting that milestone. Thank you. Emma Jackie, good morning. Good morning to Emma. Akip Kembaito, Gerald, good morning. Hope you're doing fine. Watching live from Kapsabet, Nandi County. Please comment on the issues of increase in interest rate for loans by banks. All right, that's something that we'll need to start off with. Coach Roy, achani tuandika mambo interest rates. I think it has come up earlier as well, earlier in the last week. Okay, so interest rates, of course, we'll speak about that. Let me just note it down. Interest rates. Ndio tutaanza naye na daktari hapa wa finances. Atatuambia mambo vipi. All right. Leonard Selem, keep up the good work, bro. Good to see you, my brother, all the way from diaspora. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for all the diasporans who have been making us all these years. Chirono Purity, morning. Watching from Eldoret, Kisesmo University. Good to see you. Thank you so much, Chirono. Nani mwingine hapa? Nelson Kohage. Morning Kiongozi from PRC. Thank you so much. Good to see you, Nelson. Emma Jackie, congratulations, and we'll take you far, mister. Thank you so much, Emma Jackie. Nash Navigator following that from Doha Festival. Good morning to you from Doha. Bekiwa Wallet, good morning. Good to see you. Bekiwa Walter, that is. Wesley Rotich Bitok, good morning from Doha, Qatar. Mambo Doha, watu wa Doha, mambo vipi? Thank you so much for always joining us and for making us who we are. Rogers Iego, tuned in from Garissa. We'll see what Garissa Kipkwechiri and then talk about impact of Hustler Fund. Haya, jui kama mnazidi kuomba. Limit yako imefika ngapi, by the way? Haya, don't know if it is sustainable. And actually, one of the things that has come out oftenly is, of course, the use of credit and whether they are good or bad. The biggest conversation has been on loans, whether you should borrow. I saw another story on TikTok, and it's about buying a home. Whether you should live in a rented house or you should buy a home. Which one makes common sense this morning? Good morning to you, Roy.
Wow.
How are you?
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Good morning to our viewers and our listeners, wherever they are.
How are you? Uko salama?
Niko fiti.
Naona uko na shati tu Nairobi ni baridi.
Mungu anasaidia.
Ama damu bado ni moto moto.
Zote.
I'm to have you. I know we've been trying to get hold of you for a while now.
Yes,
it's a pleasure that you at least you found time to speak to us. And also thanks for the good job that you're doing.
Yeah, we thank God. It's ministry. It's ministry in a way. Sharing what we encounter and what we know. I must commend you for the good work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Just last night, I was telling my children that I'm having a show in the morning. They were asking me, which media station? And my son saw me responding to your message. And he told me, I saw this guy post something on Facebook. I'm like, oh, wow, all right. So he's the one hosting me. So yes, you're doing a commendable job.
Thank you so much.
And we pray that God keeps soaring you from level to level.
Amen.
You may never know, but I'm sure lives out there are getting transformed.
I mean, that's very encouraging actually to hear that from you. Very, very encouraging, I must confess.
Wow.
All right, so maybe you can take a minute to introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners because this is your first time on the tackle.
Thank you so much. My name is Roy Okonji. The world calls me Coach Roy Okonji. I am a debt and money management coach, corporate trainer, and published author. That means that I regard myself as a teacher, even though I do not teach in the school of academia. I teach in what I call the school of life. The school of life is a gathering like this, where we come together to reflect on the realities of life as they are on the ground. Yes. You know, in life, kuna time inafika, you encounter a certain thing, and you're like, how come no one told me life looks like this? You know, you've gone through textbooks, you've gone through the structured education system, and there are some things that system will not tell you. But when you hit the ground, you meet the reality. So the school of life is now where we meet at the reality level. And so that's what I do. Most times I'm just using my mouth to share, especially on financial matters and other life skills. I also run something called the Debt Clinic, where I get to sit with people one-on-one, and just listen to them, especially those who feel that they've been pushed to a wall, especially with matters of debt. You don't need to think about suicide. Some of these things we can talk about. It's a journey I've been through myself. I've struggled with debt personally for a long time. My story has been shared in the media many times. So I do one-on-one coaching, not just for debt, but money matters end-to-end for individuals, families, and businesses. When I'm not doing that, I am probably writing. By the grace of God, I've also published 7 books, 4 of them on money matters and 3 of them on other life skills. Then when I'm not doing that, I'm also listening to other people just to learn, so that my cup can
continue overflowing.
Yes.
So I think maybe we just start from where you mentioned it. Of course, it's your experience with debt, and I mean it's something that Africans especially really struggle with when it comes to debt and all that and management of debt.
Yes.
Mkenya ukipatana kwa barabara saizi unamwambie nataka nikupe loan. Yeah, 50,000. that Kenyan will not even take time to think how they're going to repay this loan. I mean, that's not even one of the things that come to their head.
No.
We're like, hii nitapata pesa. Pesa itafika.
Yes.
And you find that there are Kenyans who are living from debt to debt.
Very many.
I mean, that's what we call, even under mouth is better off because you're not
digging a hole.
You're not baggaged by anybody. But Kenyans especially don't even live hand to mouth. They live debt to debt.
Debt to debt. Yes.
and I mean, first of all, maybe you can help us just define what debt is. What is debt?
Well, I like simplifying things, and many times I avoid getting academic. Debt is simply an owing. Okay, you have taken someone's money or someone's thing, and you have promised to pay back. In this case, we are talking about money or something whose repayment is monetary. Okay, and many times you have promised to pay back with something on top, which we will call interest. Okay, and it is true, as you're saying, very many of us are struggling with this monster, and sometimes it starts with very small things, very small amounts you may not see, very subtle, but eventually it will swallow you. When I look at my journey back in the day, it started like a joke. I'm a former banker, and when I got employed in the bank, no one told me about money. And it's a story of many people. When we get employed, no one teaches us about money. And that's why I keep telling employers, we must begin to have this conversation at the onboarding level. People, let's just talk to our staff about money. So the closest my HR came to talking to me about money when I was getting employed during paperwork, when you're submitting your NHIF records and KRA and all those things, is when they told me, upon confirmation, you will qualify for a loan. So I don't know a loan for what, but my mind is already...
They're already making offers.
Programmed that a loan is coming. And fast forward, when confirmation happened, I did not disappoint. I borrowed every amount I would qualify that time. Now, I have not sat down to figure out what I wanted to do with that money, but just because I qualified, I borrowed. And that's what I did, what many people do. The money is now here, so what do I do with this money? And I have argued the average human mind requires only 10 minutes to figure out what to do with money. And in a record 4 days, I had exhausted the loan money. Of course, I just did a few things, bought a few suits for myself to look the part, to meet the expectations of society, furnished my house a bit, and the money was done. I didn't know I had signed my first ticket to financial struggle. 30 days later, repayments have been loaded. Then I realized, so my net has come down. So many of us, when we borrow, we don't realize that this is debt. Repayment will be required. When money is coming, we think it's free money. Many people get excited, right? But then I was quickly reminded, but again, in the next few months, you will also qualify for a car loan. Boss.
Yani umechukua tu hata hujamaliza hii nyingine kulipa, umeambiwa kuna nyingine inakuja.
Interests a young man like the thought of driving their own car. In a small town that has about 20 cars. The thought that I'll be the one to introduce the 21st car. The next that will break looking at me. You know, figuring out who this new entrant is. Crowded my mind. And true to it, when that time came, at about 7 p.m., I landed in that town. Latest registration. I was feeling nice.
Showroom car.
30 days later, deductions have been loaded. It was clear. My struggles had started. The remaining net was not enough to take care of me from end month to end month.
Okay. But at least you have a car.
At least I have a car.
And you have a beautiful house.
By the time I was buying the car, I did not think about fuel. I did not think about servicing, insurance, all those things. All I wanted was a car. But if you ask me...
And not because you needed a car, because you have been offered a car that you thought was for free.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. If you ask me, I didn't need a car. You know why? I was actually living 2 minutes walking distance from the office. Wow. 2, not running.
Okay.
Walking, 2 minutes.
If you run, it's 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So then, when the second deduction is loaded, that's when it was clear I am struggling. And that's when I started doing what many people do in offices. You know, borrowing from a colleague here to pay when end month comes.
To fuel.
Yes. Then later I discovered many of my colleagues were on the same budget curve like I was. Chances were very high that when I was broke, they were also very broke. So you would go to someone, narrate your story, when you finish anakuambia, keti chini nikuambia yangu. Okay? Anakupigia story yake, you feel you should actually be lending him money, even though you are the one who went for money. That's when I was introduced to Shylock borrowing.
Bas. Ndio unafika sasa vizuri.
Boss. I started borrowing from Shylocks. Month in, month out, religiously. I started with a very small amount and just started growing. Fast forward, after a few years, few transfers, some promotions in between, I came to Nairobi. So if I was struggling in a rural town where you can easily go to a neighbor to pluck for you some sukuma wiki somewhere, how much more struggle do you think awaited me? So my borrowing intensified. I got addicted to borrowing. I would borrow at the slightest provocation. Nikikutana na wewe hivi, and you behave in a manner to suggest that you have some money whose use you don't know. I would quickly suggest you lend me the money and even promise to pay you with something. And that's how I got trapped in the trap of debt. And I started struggling. I struggled because I had borrowed from a multitude. Not many people. A multitude. Yes.
Every person you meet, you owe them something.
Yes. Because I borrowed from the mainstream lenders, the banks, the SACCO, the microfinances. Now I'm in the Shylocks. I've borrowed from individuals, my phone book, everyone. So the struggle intensified. So that is when I received my famous award. I'm the only award-winning borrower this side of the universe. I hold a very expensive trophy given to me by one of my Shylocks for being the most trustworthy borrower and for continued business.
Very consistent borrower.
Very consistent. But I leave it to you to imagine, who is this Shylock? You know how Shylocks are supposed to be. You know, they're mean-looking people and mean-acting people who, in their right sense of mind, would take business money to buy a trophy to award someone.
Wow.
But I thank them for that trophy because that's what opened my eyes. That is where my turning point started.
You actually given a serious stuff.
Yes. It came very nicely packaged. It was delivered by G4S.
So the Shylock is from the village or now the new Shylock in Nairobi?
And one of the Shylocks in Nairobi. I had started borrowing from him when I was in the village. The reason why I think they felt I was a special person is because the guy risked giving me money when I was far away. So he had never met me and I was repaying. We came to meet 3 years down the line. And I received this trophy. I almost shed tears. That's when something hit me.
Wow.
You mean I'm being recognized, not for anything else, but for borrowing. Not even from the bank or mainstream lenders, but from that other world.
Shylock.
I placed it on my desk and I told myself, let this thing be a reminder every morning when I come here of the journey ahead of me until I regain sanity. My colleagues didn't know about what I was going through. The first time they knew was when, I think it was KTN that came to cover my story. That's when I had left the bank now to come and start building my business. That's when colleagues were calling me. You mean that trophy was not given to you by the employer? It was it was from Shylock. And that time when I received the trophy, when I started working on my story, is when I realized that I was owing a record 86 lenders.
Wow.
86 lenders is not just a number.
Oh.
These are pressure points. Mondays used to be hell on earth days for me. I'm at the office, my laptop is on, but the screen is blank. People think I'm working, but my mind is gone because that's the day many phone calls, SMSs are coming. Ni kama wajamaa kwa WhatsApp group. They've decided tomorrow we are raiding this guy. So I did not have peace of mind. In fact, when I look back, I only thank God for sustaining me. Probably he wanted me to pick the experience for what I do today. Because I think I had every right to think about suicide. Because if you see the suicidal messages I receive almost on a daily basis, people giving up because of financial struggle. Sometimes we examine the situation. It's a drop in the ocean compared to where I was. But I understand them because this thing gets to a level where the pressure is unbearable. And especially when you're not doing anything about it, or you don't even know what you should be doing about it. So that's how, in a nutshell, my struggles began. And why I am so passionate about money matters and especially debt matters, apart from my own struggle, is also that in the bank, all my working years there, I have been a credit person. So I've worked in all credit-related departments. I've been a salesperson, so I know how loans are packaged for you to be enticed by them and even borrow before you think. I've been a banker, personal banker. You come to me with your pay slip. I've processed it for you. I've told you it will take 1 week. 1 hour you're calling me to see whether some magic has happened. Then I've been a relationship person for SMEs. So I've worked with business people. I've seen small businesses balloon because of proper utilization of borrowed funds. I've seen big ones crash because of mismanagement of borrowed funds. Then I've been a debt collector. So I've also worn that other face. I've pushed people for money. And that's when I saw the impact of reckless borrowing on families. Because I would raid homes and you could see the struggle, the change of faces at home. In some homes, it was the first time the husband is discovering that the wife is struggling with debt, or the wife is discovering that the husband is struggling with debt, and you can see the trouble at the family level. And so with all this, I realized there is a gap in society. We need to talk about money.
But even before we get to that, I've also seen it happening fast, and especially where I come from. There is a season when there used to be these guys who were coming in to sell loans, especially to women and mothers. And most of the women were putting maybe their cows as collateral. So you find that the only cow in that homestead, that feeds the family, girls maybe to get to the shop, unapata kasukari kidogo. The only cow in that homestead, some guys show up one day. When they're coming, they're very happy, they're smiling. They're bringing the loans.
Yes.
But the day of reckoning, unaona ni kama ni militia who just landed. But we all know that, and I know everybody who is watching us this morning, either you've experienced that, you've been through it, you've seen your parents go through it, or personally, you've been through it yourself, or you know someone who has been through it. But even before we get to that, so how was your transition like? You're talking to us about this trophy that you have on your table.
Yes.
It has been given to you by your lender, by Shiloh. You have it on the table. You are... you're saying that was your awakening.
Yes.
But then again, I would really like to understand, because that is where a lot of people get stuck. Between actually realizing that you have a problem. You have a debt problem. It's just like alcoholism or drug abuse.
Yes.
There's a gap between when you're like, wow, by the way, kumbe na kunywanga sana. I'm like, oh, by the way, kumbe na vutanga sigara sana. I'm like, oh, kumbe this cocaine I've been sniffing is doing me a lot of harm. And then there is now the journey that begins from the realization to actually you achieving some freedom in whatever you're trying to get yourself out of. So there's you now getting an award.
Yes.
You're not preparing your mind, of course, that you have been overborrowing until you saw the award, and you're like, hey, kumbe najulikana huko nje. Not for anything. Not because you're doing an assembly job in your bank and the service of your desk and all that.
Yes.
But because you borrow too much. And they're happy that you borrow.
Yes,
and they're happy that you borrow and you try to pay.
Yes.
Now, is that point where you're saying, fine, this is what the problem is. And between now you giving us a testimony.
Yes.
Between the realization of being a sinner and the stage of salvation. How was that process like, and how did you do it?
Well, thank you. That's a good question. It's a question actually about debt management now, what I call curative debt management, because the method I use is the method that came as a revelation as a result of the journey I went through. So when I received this trophy, I get lost in thought, now reflecting on my life. And that is when I got to a moment of acceptance. And therefore, even as I train, I usually say the starting point in breaking free from the trap of debt is acceptance. Because you cannot solve a problem whose existence you still deny. So I begin to tell myself, I think I'm responsible for where I am today. I will not blame anyone. The truth is, I am responsible for where I am today. And so you get to accept that the way you've been handling money in the past has not been the best. Probably some change needs to happen. You get to accept that where you are is not a finality. Something can be done about it. And you get to fire yourself in readiness for this something that needs to happen. I got to accept that I am the only person who can actually bring the change I would want to see. And so that was the starting point, just preparing my mind for the journey ahead. This time I'm not talking to anyone, I'm just talking to myself, right?
Yeah.
To myself. Unfortunately, that time, when I'm going through this moment, I had not disclosed to my wife. Later on is when I came to open up to my wife. And this is something I share during men's conferences, because sometimes we fight with masculinity for a long time, and probably we may be having solutions within ourselves or close to ourselves. And so that's the starting point, acceptance. Okay. After acceptance, the next thing I did was to develop a list of everyone I owed money. It was shocking. That is when I realized I was owing 86 lenders. I usually mention 86 in the limelight because that was the first figure that I got. Okay. But the truth is, later on, the figure ballooned to about 94. Wow. But what is out here is 86, because that was the first figure. But now that shocked me. And I learned something about human beings. If I ask you how much you owe or the people you owe, the average mind rushes to pick the bigger figures. Yes. But wait until you now dedicate yourself to just write down everyone you owe money. Everyone. You might be shocked for many people. So that is when I saw my numbers. And it's good for people to see their numbers. In fact, every time we have this conversation, I'll give your followers a homework. That after this show, just find time and sit down. If you owe anyone, just sit down and remind yourself. I discovered it is easier for us to note down how we want to spend our money, how we wish to make our money, and very many things we can list down. But we, for some reason, avoid listing down the people we owe money. So I listed down the people I owed money. The next thing is now for me to ask myself, so what with this list? Where next? And so I started looking for literature on debt management. Unfortunately, we did not have coaches locally that time. We didn't have books on debt management. And that is when I discovered Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I started reading about him, and I started writing to him. Boss, I'm struggling with this. Is it possible probably you have a book on debt management? Because the ones I've read, I haven't seen on debt management. And they'll tell me they don't have a book on debt management. They'll send me some articles. Most of the stuff they were talking about were Western oriented. But I would pick a few tips. Anakuja kwa ofisi kusema atanikata shingo. You get?
They're talking about civilization, credit cards and all that.
There you see they're talking about structured things. There are guys there who do debt counseling, guys who who will take up your things. They can even
anatokea na panga.
Hapa kuna jamaa anakuja na panga hapa. So I'm now in the phase I call the strategic phase now. So what strategies do I use? And so I'm reaching out now to read more about money, to understand money. The more I read, the more I discover my flaws in the past. And so I start trying out a few things. And the first thing I try out and starts making sense was me reaching out to my lenders. Okay. And because now I have a list, I dedicate myself. I buy a notebook for debt management. This is where I'll be writing my things, and I buy a diary. Because if I negotiate with you and we agree that we will review after 3 months, if I don't write it down, out of 86, next time you call me, I'll give you a story of another person. And that will not reflect very well on me. So I start writing down. So I reach out to my lenders. And this time I decide I will go bare, put ego aside. I am in a situation that is not normal, and therefore I'll use...
A banker doesn't have money.
Yes. So I reach out to people. And I tell them, boss, the truth is, I am struggling. Nimekuwa nikijifanya. I've been living a lie. The truth is, even the interest you're charging me, I cannot manage to pay. If we continue this way, I will default. I will default, utaniua, but we will not achieve anything. So I want you to help me. And so as you reach out to your lenders, you're explaining the situation. Maybe you've defaulted on their debts for a long time. You're just explaining, this is why I've been defaulting. This is why I've been struggling. Can we work out something? Number 2, as you reach out, you can also be renegotiating. You can, depending on who your lender is, you can be renegotiating on the interest. You can be renegotiating on repayment amount. Maybe now things are tight. You used to pay 10K every month. Now you can only afford 4. Don't run away. Just suggest to them that currently you cannot afford 4. The psychology of lending is such that every lender wants to know that you still have their interest at heart. So when you reach out, when you're proactive, then it works very well than waiting for the lender to reach out to you.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately for many borrowers who are struggling, when the lenders reach out, we want to run even faster. Now, that makes them engage a higher gear. And that's how some people get threatened. In the one-on-one clinic, I meet cases sometimes that will startle you. And some people have even been drawn guns at. Because, by Shylocks, because you've defaulted, boss, I don't care.
And you're running away.
And you're running away. So you reach out, you try to renegotiate. Out of reaching out, there are some Shylocks of mine who said, boss, tumetoka mbali. We feel you. Fanya aje, wacha story ishie hapo. Because look, you gave me 100,000. For more than 2 years, I've been paying interest only. Some at 10%, some at 20%. So let's even work with 10%. That's 10 Gs every month.
Yes.
So I've paid for more than 2 years. That's more than 24 months. So I've paid you already 240,000 interest. 100 is still solid. So we are not moving. But you've already gotten your money back. So there are a few of them who actually wrote off the balances. Had I not reached out, they wouldn't have written off. You get? Told me, boss, we feel you. And fanya aje. Watch a story ifike hapo. There are others.
So let me get it straight. For 2 years, you're only paying interest. You're not settling your principal.
Yes, my friend. There are people who've been paying interest even for 5 years on some debts.
The principal is still
crazy out here. The principal is still solid. It's still solid. And it's a ruthless world.
Wow.
It is payday. These guys are crazy people. They're at your door. They're here. They'll come to the office. They're very connected. They know where you work. They monitor you.
They have all systems.
Yes, they have the system. So they know how to get you. They're here every day. They know every employee will fight very hard to salvage their jobs, to save their jobs, to save their face. So they will be threatening to reach out to HR. And they usually do for some people. Some people have actually been sent home. And many times I have issues with such employers. Because look, when this guy was having the engagement with these guys, you guys were not involved. Why would you then find it fit to send this guy home? Probably you could help them figure out a few things here and there. So reaching out and renegotiating helped me. For some people, I would tell them, boss, badala kuendelea kuhesabu interest, is it possible you can give me a static figure? So that if I give you 1,000, I know it has come down by 1,000. However long it will take, I'm committed to sorting you out. But mambo ya kupandisha tusimamishe. And there are those who accepted and we fixed a figure. There are those who would accept to reduce interest. So instead of 10, can we do 5 in the meantime? It's a gain. 10 is not 5, or 20 is not 5.
Sure.
All right. So I reached out to each of them and I would write down, we have agreed this with so and so. For others, I would be buying peace of mind. I would tell them, boss, currently I'm not able to do something. Is it possible we can review after 3 months? Give me some time to try figure out a few things. And please do not overpromise. When you get to that level, your brain stops working normally, and you just want to buy peace of mind for now.
For now, you don't think
about it. And so
tomorrow.
many people say, boss, nitakusort by Friday. They have no clue
how they're going to do that.
What they're going to do to get money by Friday. And when Friday comes, you see you're now a liar. You don't have power to renegotiate again because you overpromise. So you have to be realistic when you are promising. Then another thing I did, I'm just sharing a few tips that I did, many things I was trying. I start to look for chances to consolidate. This is where you can get one debt, which is fairly priced, a bit flexible in terms of pressure, and you use it to swallow a number of the people you owe. And in this instance, you're looking at high pressure people or high interest rate people, because high pressure person denies you the chance to think soberly. So you need to do away with them very fast. High cost debt is stealing your money very fast.
It accumulates too fast.
Yes. So if you did away with them, then things will be able to slow down a bit. So I started looking for those opportunities. I started approaching some friends, just laying it bare. And boss, if you can just afford a little amount for me and just be flexible on me so that I can swallow these people. So that takes a lot of energy because as a man, you've gotten to a level where you've told ego, hey, wait.
Tulia
kidogo. Hapa sasa ni.
I'll pick you up.
We are now on the ground, okay? And so that begins to help me to reduce because I could get 50 G's here, then I swallow the 1,000, 5,000, those guys, a number of them, and then we keep moving. Then, apart from consolidation, I also start asking myself, how else can I make some income, extra income? And I had discovered my writing gift when I was still at the bank. In fact, the same year I got the trophy, the same year I published my first book, Relate Well, Live Well. And so I started writing.
What was the name of the book?
Relate Well, Live Well.
Okay.
It's a book about the importance of relating well with people, wherever you are, and how it can be useful.
And clearly you are relating well with your lenders. You are relating well with your lenders.
Helped me quite a lot. You get? And
because you're definitely not managing finances.
My friend. So I published the book, and so I started selling the book. And that time I've also discovered my speaking gift. So I started looking for gigs in schools, in institutions. So I'd get a 3K here, a 5K here, I would sell a couple of books, I would come back, it would help me clear an mshwari here, another one there, and so on and so on and so forth. So looking for extra income can also help someone quite a lot. Many of us can make extra income, just that we have not sat down to think about it. And sometimes when you have a one-on-one, we are able to examine.
Or we have not been pressured enough.
So what are you gifted in? What are your talents? What are you passionate about? Can we commercialize it? Can we think about a model where you can begin to make a coin out of the same? So that's another thing that I tried. It also helped me a bit. Another thing I needed to do was lifestyle adjustment. Lifestyle adjustment we must mention here. Chances are high, the reason why you've gotten to your current struggle is because you jumped the gun. You went to live a lifestyle that was not fit or could not be contained by your current means. Okay. What many people do is that we are quick to start living the life of the future, and we pray and hope that our means will follow us and accommodate us in the new lifestyle.
Find us on the way.
When naturally you're supposed to grow your means and then now live within them. All right. So I had to adjust a few things because chances are high where you are living, probably you're living there because of peer pressure or because you wanted to make a statement for people to see. The car you're driving, maybe it's a statement car. You wanted guys to see, you wanted to be seen that you also belong, you also can afford. All right. Maybe the life you're living, going out every weekend, you're partying, but you're partying using money that is not yours. Maybe that can be adjusted. You may not kill it completely, but you can tell yourself, I'll do it twice a month or once a month. So just be real. This is your journey. It's not my journey. It's not anyone's journey. This is your journey. And so I needed to adjust a few things. I needed to adjust how I would go to work. I had to sell the vehicle I had at the moment when I was starting that journey because I needed to be real. And I stayed without a car for a very long time, actually 3 years before I got my next car. That's to stabilize things. And this is where you're now putting everything else aside. Let them laugh if they will laugh. Let them wonder. Let them talk. Let them say how this banker is broke, doesn't have money, and whatever else they will say. Let them say. This is not their story. Yeah. This is my story. Because if they learn that my children are not able to go to school, they're the same people who will come asking, how come you're not able to pay their school fees? So let me adjust. Chances are very high. Even the schools you took your children to was out of pressure. So a time has come that you examine your lifestyle and see what can be adjusted for you to come back to reality. Okay, that might also help a few things. Then you also begin to be keen on how you spend your money. So now budgeting comes in. So every coin you want to get, you want to determine, I will use it this way. I will use it this way. So it was work, yes. It took me 3 years to regain control. Not to clear, to regain control. Control means I can now walk on the streets of Nairobi without fearing that I will meet you and I owe you money and you will pop the question of money and I don't have an answer. Control means we are now on the same page. I could still be owing you, but we have negotiated, we have agreed, we have some working relationship going. So that's another thing I did, just to make sure that now my sanity has come back. So 3 years is when I was able now to feel like a man again. I can walk without the fear that someone has a panga on my neck and things like those. So it is going to be a journey. For a listener who is here, it's not going to be overnight. Some people think it's overnight. In many training sessions, in the corporate space, or even when I'm doing my lives on social media, many times we get this question: boss, I owe 10 people, I owe them this much money. Tell me what I will do. I really want to be debt free by next month, the shortest time possible. It is not going to be overnight.
For a problem that you've accumulated for only
over
you want to fix in a month.
So you can't fix it over a month. It is going to take time. So that's another thing I did. But lastly, I must emphasize on action. Action. Don't just plan. Stop procrastinating about it. Start. Because nothing can be compared to peace of mind, financial peace of mind. Living knowing that no one is coming with a panga. If you are employed, you're not living on the edge thinking that someone will be talking to HR. What am I going to say? And the next call you receive, if it's coming from HR, you start shaking because you're wondering. Maybe one of them has reached out to your HR and things like those. So I'm just sharing bits of what I did because I know someone might be listening and maybe they are there and they are wondering. But when we meet at one-on-one level, because at the strategic level, that's where we part ways. Everyone begins to face in a different direction because human beings are not the same. Your circumstances are not mine. But now when we do it one-on-one, I'm able to now read you and see, maybe if we try this, it might work for you. Because there's someone who is struggling and they are married, another one is not. One is married to a supportive spouse, another one is not. One has children, another one does not. And one has discovered themselves, they know how else they can make another coin, another one has not discovered themselves, and so on and so forth.
The prescriptions cannot be the same. Now, even before we go to the question that has been asked by someone who's watching here about the interest rates, of course, in banks. And this actually happens. I'm saying Pauline is saying, I think that is demonic in a way. And this is something that many people actually talk about. And it's actually, is debt entirely evil? Is it entirely a bad thing to have?
Wow.
Is it? And also tying into that, what is the attitude of Kenyans towards debt? Mwana mwingine basi hapa anasema kama serikali inaomba mimi ni nani. So first is debt entirely a bad thing? Is it a bad idea? And secondly, what is the attitude of Kenyans towards debt?
Now, debt is not entirely a bad thing. Okay, and that's why in the financial world, we will talk of good debt and bad debt. And we will say good debt is that debt that brings value to you, adds value to you, leaves you better than it found you, especially in the long run. When you look back, you want to smile and say, it was a good thing I did this. But bad debt is that debt that takes value from you. It drains you. Later on, when you look back, you're wondering, how did I find myself here? Why did I have to take this decision? That becomes bad debt. In monetary terms, we are saying good debt brings money to your pocket. Bad debt takes money away from your pocket. Sometimes we will say, good debt, other people will help you to pay it. But bad debt, you pay it yourself. So that means probably you took some money, you invested somewhere, and therefore the people who are trading with you or who are taking advantage of where you invested are giving you money, so they are helping you to repay. So it is possible that you can utilize debt and use it as a catalyst of wealth creation. All right? And the attitude of Kenyans, and it's not just Kenyans, the attitudes of human beings. But here, we've ballooned it. The thing is, how we handle money is a product of mindset. How our mind is fixed about money. What informs our mindset? Many things. Environment informs our mindset. Upbringing is perhaps the largest informant of our mindset. Social norms and current things that are happening in society. When you log on to social media and all the memes you see is mwanaume ni deni, if Kenya has borrowed, who am I? You know. But here is the thing. You see, financial struggle at individual level is personal.
Yes.
Okay? And sometimes we laugh at these memes, but the truth is, there are people who take them very serious. I've sat with people who acknowledge they actually started borrowing when they did not need to borrow. Just that where they were, everyone seemed to normalize debt until they also asked themselves, why can't I just borrow? I'm able
So
to
they can also
qualify.
fit in.
Let me just borrow so that, everyone seems to have borrowed. In fact, I look awkward not to have borrowed. But where it leaves you, you face that struggle alone. You get? And therefore, as individuals, as we wait for the economy to peak, as we wait for government to do what they will do, begin doing what you can do at your local level, at your personal level. Begin to define what works for you as a person, as we wait for the macroeconomy to plug in and support you. So our attitude is not very right, and largely because of our mindset. The knowledge we've gotten has not been supportive of proper financial knowledge. And please, money conversations are not conversations for finance people. I'm not a finance person myself. Money conversations are conversations of interest.
And experience as well.
And
but you can tell a story.
Experience. Yes. And all of us, because we handle money, we have a story to tell. So let's just get the interest to learn about money, to adjust our money behaviors to the best versions possible. And that will take us a very long way. And just tying it to the question of interest rates, adjustments are looming upwards. I think the best will go to 9.5, and that will affect things. However, as people, we will cry, okay? But our cries might not necessarily bring an immediate change.
Yeah.
But if we adjusted our borrowing habits, then we will be able to lessen the burden. We'll be able to lessen the burden because many people borrow because they qualify.
Not because they need it.
Not because they need to. They borrow because there's a willing lender. Someone has told them, we can give you money. And whether the rates are changing downwards or not, or even upwards, the thing is our behaviors can still mess us.
Sure.
We used to have high rates before we started standardizing these things. Banks would even have loans as high as even 30%, 25%, and things like those. The rates came down, and
people could still take
and
those
people
loans.
still messed themselves up. However, if you're in business or you're an individual, when the rates begin to go up, it's a wake-up call for you to tell yourself, if I'm going for debt, let it be debt that is bringing value to me. So that as I bear the cost, because debt comes at a cost, debt is not free money. As I bear the cost, I can see the value that it is leaving me with. Otherwise, if we continue our blind borrowing, then the increase in rates makes it even worse, because then you're bleeding faster and your financial muscle weakens at a faster rate. So we need to be cautious. We need to be cautious of our borrowing habits. Let's just not borrow because we can qualify. And let's also normalize seeking for help. If you realize that you're struggling with this thing, don't die in silence. Seek for help. Seeking for help might mean, just reaching out to some people who might be in a position to probably understand what you're going through, or they've gone through, or they have information that might be useful. Sometimes seeking for information, for help, needs you to reach out to your bank and tell them, hey, I am struggling. I had this debt, but circumstances have changed. Okay. Is it possible we can make some restructure here and there? Is it possible that you guys can figure out something that will help me? You'll be so surprised. Some lenders will be willing to work out something with you because they gave out money for money to come back. So I know some, and usually I say, I will not crucify the entire organization, but probably it's a product of short-sighted bankers, individuals. A borrower who comes and they are suggesting a way forward, and they are telling you, boss, I know I need to be paying 20,000 per month,
but I'm not able to.
But I'm not able. I can do 15. Why would you chase them away? You see, chasing them away makes this thing even more complicated. And sometimes it thickens borrowers, and they will get to a level and say, look, boss, you do what you think you can do. You know, in debt recovery, I would meet all sorts of people. I've gone to recover debt somewhere. It was a very interesting encounter. And there's a guy who actually drew his gun and he placed it on the desk and told me, boss, sasa nafikiri mnaweza fanya vile mnataka. Na kweli tulifanya vile tulitaka. We left.
Bila hamkutaka.
Bila hatukutaka lakini sawa tu, you get. So I always advocate for a relationship between lenders and borrowers. It works. It worked for me. I have seen it work for very many other people. And unless your bank is this crazy one that you are trying to approach them, for a working relationship and they're not really hearing. And even as you renegotiate, send them whatever you have. Just deposit. Wacha tungoje kama watarudisha, but I've never seen a reversal when you are trying to repay. So just send whatever you can, even as you try to renegotiate. Yeah, so I felt it's necessary in the wake of the looming chances of interest rates. It's important that we also adjust our borrowing habits so that we lessen the burden and we take debt that is going to leave us better than it found us. So it's not entirely an evil thing. I'm still in debt personally. I know that experience I was in can leave you with some phobia. I meet many people who are phobic because of the previous relationship with debt. But now the knowledge I have also allows me to figure out that I can use debt to create money. And many times I use debt to create money. There's a time an organization has
people's money.
Yes. A time an organization has, for instance, ordered for books that were not in print, adequately in print, and maybe that money I've channeled it in another thing. And this is money that is ready. Supply we give, we pay. What would stop me from picking debt, going to the press, coming up with my books, selling, getting the money and paying? So it's not an entirely bad thing. But you just have to be cautious. You have the responsibility to define your debt as either good or bad, depending on your conduct, before borrowing, during borrowing, and after borrowing.
Kikuachilia hata ameshtuka anasema, after all massive borrowing, are you still borrowing?
Yes, I'm still borrowing. But now, at least, si zile za panga. Si zile za panga.
Kuna deni kuna heshima kidogo.
Ni deni ambayo tunaweza zungumza.
Okay, all right. So, the reason why someone will be borrowing, of course, is because of needs that they have.
Yes.
I mean, you're always borrowing for one thing or the other. And the more you borrow, the more you get into debt. Of course, you start now borrowing for very petty things.
Yes.
You start even borrowing for unga and buying a 200 bob. You start borrowing fare.
Yes.
Unasema ni pay fare. And man kichukua advance na kulipa. Kwa kiosk hapo kuna kitabu imejaa. I mean, you start borrowing for consumables.
Yes.
And you find that any chance of you, of course, having a provision is almost nil. So you're always living from debt to debt. We're living from advance to advance.
Yes.
I mean, you're always living from something to something. And correct. That something is obviously debt. And the more you get into it, the more you start borrowing for the very basic things. Maybe at first you're borrowing for a car. Then you have the car, you start borrowing for the fuel. To fuel the car.
For service.
So now you fuel the car, you start borrowing for service.
Yes.
Then you realize that now you don't even have food. You start borrowing now for the food.
Exactly.
So even as it sounds very poetic to realize that you have a problem, a debt problem, and yes, you want to change. Very poetic. Sounds very beautiful. Yeah. But then again, you still need to eat.
Yes.
You still need, children need to go to school. You still need to pay school fees. You still need your fare to work. Now, so as you are stopping this a bit, how do you then fund your basic life?
Basic life. Yeah. Good question. And I want to agree with you. One of the things I try to do is to try and be as real as possible. I know in my financial lessons there are some doctrines I have disagreed with, and not for a bad reason, but just to keep up with reality. For example, there's a method I call the gradual weaning method to help people who are struggling with addictive debt, the short-term debt that is cyclic, like salary advance, like mobile app loans, like those ones that like credit card, those ones that you take now, you pay now, you pick you take again in the next minute. You see, once your system is tagged to such borrowing, then I come and I tell you that if you discover you are in a debt problem, the first step is for you to stop borrowing. Tell me how practical that will be. You get, because you will attend this lesson and we have told you the first thing is for you to stop borrowing. That time, it is payday, mshahara imefika, na sasa mshahara wako iko tagged kwa hizi apps. Ikikuja yote kwanza huwa inaingia kwa hiyo shimo, izibe, ndio sasa uchukue, uanze kusurvive.
Kwanza fuliza, kwanza it doesn't negotiate.
Imeenda. So, now you are listening to me and I'm telling you, look, wamekata, now stop borrowing. So where are you going to fund your life from? So yes, I acknowledge that it gets to a level where it begins to look very tricky because you have your dailies going on, demands are there every moment, and you need to survive. You have to survive, and this is part of the reason why when it gets to borrowing for consumption, then it is very worrying. But now here is what you can try to do. Number one, if you're already in that mess, then you can try this thing that I'm calling the gradual weaning method. This weaning is that weaning for babies, not weaning ya kushinda, weaning ya kuacha.
Ya watoto.
So what you do is this. Let's say, for example, you have some mobile app loans, or you're addicted to salary advance. Mpaka employer sasa anashangaa usaidike namna gani, or to credit card. Now, if you have a limit of say 10,000 on an app, when you pay, you give yourself a reduction factor, which is practical to your life. So no one should dictate. So you look at your finances and you tell yourself, I want to wean myself off this app, but I'm not able to just pay once and stop. So I'll start borrowing downwards, not upwards. Whether they tell me they're increasing my limit or not, I will now not be bothered with the increase. I am focusing on borrowing downwards. Now, looking at my finances, I can afford sacrificing 200 or 500 or 1,000 every month. So if you have a limit of 10K, and for example, you've told yourself you will be reducing by 500. So today you will clear. This end month, you will clear. But then you tighten your belt and tell yourself, I will not borrow 10 just because I qualify for 10. I will now borrow 9.5.
You borrow downwards.
So you borrow 9.5. Alafu we mwenye jikaze vile utajikaza kwa system yako, so that you maintain that. End month, you pay the 9.5. And then you tell yourself, next time I'm borrowing 9. Okay? You do like that. That is what I did practically with my Mshwari. And that time, because my situation was tight, my reduction factor was 100 shillings. I started with 100. So ukiclear ingine, sasa unaweza kuja upandishe 100 to 200. But initially, I started by reducing by 100. So if my limit is this amount, next borrowing, less 100.
Is less 100.
So it's a method I've used it on myself. I've also prescribed it on many other people, and we have seen it work. It can help. Another thing I must mention, which brings faster gains, is thinking income. Let us normalize coming to terms with the reality that reliance on one source of income is catastrophic. I know when you have a source of income, there is a sense of comfort it creates in us. And very many people today are comfortable that on this debt, kakitu kataingia. Notwithstanding, the kakitu might be small or not able to, take care of my needs entirely. But I am okay. I know kakitu kataingia. Let us always remind ourselves that it is possible to make another coin without necessarily jeopardizing your main hustle. You can think about something else you can do. There are very many people who are endowed with gifts. There are people who know how to weave mats. They know they used to weave them in primary school, in high school. They know how to do it. but they just left it there. How about you started doing it?
To earn some extra money.
Yes. Instead of using your Facebook to tell us your weekend things, why don't you post for us the mats you have made, the bangles you have made? We might buy. Okay, I mentioned these simple things in class, and I have a few cases that have amazed me. There is someone in Kisumu who I mentioned this. It was just a one-on-one debt management session, and we said, can we examine what we can monetize in your life? Today, she has a very wonderful gift shop. She has now employed people and even empowered others to learn how to make those things. Now she does not make. She started by making. So at night she would be making. And then now telling guys, look, I have this. When it's gifting season, Valentine and what have you, you can use this for, tailor-made, for your gifts and what have you. Now she has a business. It started like a side hustle. Now it's a main hustle. Wow. There's another lady. We had a session. And I'm trying to think, what can we do about income here? She lost her job during COVID, when COVID just came. And in the course of the conversation, she kept mentioning, me, I love cooking. In fact, after this session, there is some food I want to go and prepare. And then just before the session ended, I told her, come back. By the way, can't we monetize this love for
this skill?
Yes, because it's a natural for you. And so she sat again, said, so what can we do about it? I said, we are in a COVID season. Things are not happening. Restaurants are not opening. There are many bachelors, many people who used to rely on food deliveries and what have you. How about you make some snacks and see whether in your neighborhood, you can start with your neighbors and just sell. Let them have a feel of what you're preparing and let's see how it goes. And she was living in an estate like this one. And she thought about it and she told me, nitaanza. And she started with her blog. And she gave them a few things to test for free. They tested, they started buying, and word started spreading. And before long, she told me, boss, I'm struggling to meet demand. Okay. As we speak, she now has a restaurant. And one thing she says, she's grateful that COVID came, that she lost her job. Oh. But what I'm saying is not for people to lose their jobs, but is it possible that you can start thinking?
There's something else that you can do to get extra money.
Some of us, the skills we are employed to give our employer, we give our employers Monday to Friday. What do we do with our Saturday and Sunday? Is it possible that the same skills can be sold to another person for something?
And you can get the money that you're looking for.
In the evening, for example. And now the world is a global village. We can now do some things virtually, online. It is possible. You can give your skills to your employer up to 5 and probably work for another person in another country online, all right? And there are many platforms and different platforms will work for people, things like Upwork and all those things. There are people who are making some coins out of them virtually. The one-on-one sessions that I do, I have very many clients out of the country, very many people in diaspora, both Kenyans and others. They'll book a session and we will do it, and they will pay for something. Some people have a writing skill. Make a book, sell, make an ebook. It might be the easiest and less involving financially. Sell at 100 bob, at 50 bob. When I left the bank, I was writing weekly articles for free in 2016, for free, every Monday. I had this dream that one day I'll get a column in the newspaper. So I told myself, let me practice and see if I can be able to do 52 straight articles. And I was able to do so. And that's how I started creating my following. I used to call them Focus Talk. Every Monday morning, they were out. So when I left the bank, because I started sharing within the bank before I started sharing outside. When I left the bank, I thought to myself, I now have people who depend on this. Monday, if I delay a bit, they are calling to find out if something is wrong. So 2017, I came up with a way of guys subscribing for the articles. And I was selling an article at 50 shillings. So you can do an annual subscription. You can do a monthly subscription, weekly subscription, or a daily, or rather, a weekly subscription was the smallest.
One article, yes.
That was 50 bob per article. And because people were now used to it, and I'm now going to cut this thing that they were used to, I had some people subscribing, and I made a few coins out of the same. So there are people who have a skill. Sometimes you just need to think
to monetize it.
Okay, how to monetize. The problem is that many of us overthink when it comes to thinking of ideas for creating income. Some of us are waiting for big capital, for us to launch a big, huge supermarket, for us to launch, something out of this
You
world.
want to start big.
Big thing. You want to start big. But while you are waiting for big, you had money that probably you were able to start small, and then you start scaling pole pole. So let us embrace looking for income. Why am I emphasizing this? When you're struggling with debt, extra income will help you in two ways. One, it will prevent the temptation of backsliding in your journey of regaining sanity. Number two, it will also speed up the process. If you had income of 10,000, and this is what is to sustain you and also help you in debt repayment, and another person had 10 plus another 2 from another source, the rate at which you will repay your debt is not the same. Because this one has 2K that you can inject in the system
money that you
to speed up the process. That will go along.
So you can heal faster.
Okay. So while we appreciate that the daily demands on us are also a factor as to why we are perennially struggling, it is possible that we can begin to think income. Begin to sell our skills, begin to look for extra engagements over the weekend. Some of us are talented MCs. We MC our corporate events, but we never sell our MCing skills out here. Okay. We can sell them over the weekend. Some of us can speak to people, encourage other people. We have picked skills out here. I started with speaking in schools. I've spoken in very many schools. And I'll just go to encourage
for free
students for free. And later on I started commercializing it. And I'll go to a school, they'll give me a 5K that I did not have.
Yes.
So maybe I'll spend bus fare 1,000, I have 4,000. So when I come back, I can use 1,000 kulipa Shylock mwingine atulie, you get. So there is more we can do, and there is no limit to the number of your sources of income.
All right.
The many you have, the better, as long as you make sure you're not getting confused. Because I have seen some people, when they get some money, because they hear people saying one source of income is dangerous, so what they do is they open 10 businesses at one go. It can't work that way.
There's something CK Dan is saying, and I know this is a situation that many Kenyans are in, and even including myself.
Yes.
And they're saying, how can you settle down when you know the limit you qualify for is 50K, and the money will come to your phone ASAP? And this is what is happening even now in Kenya, especially because I say this. There was something I watched in America about payday. The payday, there was a documentary on payday and the pain that payday has caused to Americans, and the fact that it's money that you can access. And if you ask any Kenyan right now how much they have in the M-Pesa, they'll include Fuliza.
Yes.
Even me. Sasa nikipiga sababu yangu expenditure yako naongeza na Fuliza. Naongeza. So Fuliza ni pesa yangu.
Yes, ni pesa yako sasa.
Fuliza is my money. Or any other money that you can easily access. Any single Kenyan that you can ask right now about their balances, they'll include the money that they can access easily as debt.
Yes, correct.
And now when you are borrowing, on when you think about making a purchase, of course it's a need that you have at that moment. Now I have a need of probably of 30,000 Kenyan shillings.
Yeah.
Now there is a part of me that is telling me borrowing is bad and this thing is going to mess me up. But then again, when I look at my Fuliza limit, it's 27,000.
Yes.
So which lion will win the war? Juu kwangu hii ni pesa that I can access.
Na ndio hii kweli.
Na unajiambia hii ndalepa hii hakuna shida.
Yes.
Kama na wale zingine this one they also pay. So which lion wins in this battle?
Wow, thank you. It's a good question. The question is bordering on financial discipline. And I acknowledge financial discipline is not an overnight thing. It is nurtured over time. One of the biggest temptations we have in modern time is the ease accessibility of credit these days. These days, debt is hawked like mangoes. You wake up, your phone is telling you your limit has been enhanced to this. Some app had blacklisted you, now they have whitelisted you. They can give you money. Yes. It starts with you realizing and beginning to segment your money and reminding yourself that what I really will consider as my money is this one. Okay. This other one is credit. It's not my money. It's money I will repay. I know it gets to that level where, and it's one of the indicators of a debt-trapped person. I have a long list of indicators of a debt-trapped person. I've documented in one of my books. But when we do conference sessions or we are training, we go through a test to test whether you are trapped in debt. And one of the indicators is when you start counting your borrowing limit as part of your income or part of your money. So when I ask you, so how much money do you have? Then you pick your salary, and then you also remember, I have an mshwari of this, I have a fuliza limit of this, and in your mind you tell yourself, instead of 30, I think I have 37. Okay, because you're counting them. Yes. So I know financial discipline does not come overnight, but it begins to be nurtured. It begins from small things. You recognizing that, hey, the portion that is mine is this. Even though I have this limit, I know I can access, but let me not lie to myself that it is part of mine. It is not mine. Okay, and if I'll be borrowing it, I'll need to repay. And therefore, the tenets of good borrowing must come back to mind. That then, if I must borrow, then I'll borrow for something that will bring value or leave me with value. I'm not just borrowing for the sake of borrowing because they have given me. Because what some of us do is when we get the message, we borrow. Ikaange kwa M-Pesa. But that is dangerous. First of all, you did not have a plan to borrow. The message imeingia tu ikakuambia, now you have a limit on this. Like, hey. Okay, so how would you have survived without that message? Probably would still have done life. Financial discipline begins by you also learning how to say no. You can't be saying yes to everything, to every invitation to spend. Not every time your friends are calling you out, you must respond by saying yes. Boss, nipatie tu dakika 5 nafika hapo. Yet you had no plan. You can't. You can't be a yes person. When in money matters, you'll burn your fingers. Look here, your money comes to you measured. If those that are employed, you never earn money any day you wish to earn money. It comes on a specific day. You never earn any amount. It comes measured a specific amount. Who gives us the power to imagine that we can now spend in a manner that is not measured?
We are limitless.
We must come back and begin to learn how to measure our money. Measuring your money does not mean you change your lifestyle, but it means you put boundaries. You tell yourself, I know I am a party animal, but this month I will party to this limit. So this is what I'm putting aside for my partying. If I exhaust it, then I must learn to say no to future party invitations until the next cycle comes. So initially it will be difficult because you've been saying yes. Every time they reach out to say, hey boss, dakatano. But now begin to be bold and say, hey boss, I don't think...
Leo sina budget.
Sina budget. Yeah, sina budget. If they're willing to finance, fine. But you have made it clear. Leo sina budget. With time, actually, they'll begin to realize there's some sense in what you're saying. There's something about you these days. And like I told you, part of my starting point was lifestyle adjustment. And I know I dropped a few friends in that phase because suddenly they thought, hey, there is something about you that is a bit unusual. Because now I would start saying no. Hey, boss, leo sitatokea. Leo sitatokea. And that is what might help. So I want guys to start, because it's possible, we can begin to learn this thing. So yes, you are where you are. Begin by acknowledging that is not the right way to look at your money. It's not yours, this that you will borrow, because you will give them back and with something on top. That means this thing on top is also even going to even shrink whatever portion was what you regarded as yours. Because if you had 10,000 as your pay, and you have a limit of 5,000, that when you take 5, you will repay as 6. So if you borrowed 5 and you are calling it yours, Yet you will repay and they need 1 that is coming from this 10. That means you are left with 9. So is it prudent for you to continue calling it as yours? So yes, there's a temptation, depending on the needs, depending on mazoea, but let us begin to remind ourselves that, hey, it is possible. We can start saying no to some things. It is possible I can't have everything at once. It is possible I can begin to learn a few things. I can begin to probably manage my expenditure better so that my money can do more than it is currently doing. Because another thing many of us suffer from is wastefulness. Because we just do things because we can afford them. But if we were to audit our utilization, very many people have a lot of wastefulness. Very many people. I know some people have heard me say that there are families that cook food fit for 16 people when there are only 4. And they throw away the remainder as leftovers every day. You've just wasted food for another 3 days, or wasted food for another 3 families like yours. There are people whose home internet is fit to power a factory or a company with 100+ employees. Yet there are only 2, and they only spend it on WhatsApp and Facebook, maybe powering their TV.
Can easily do 5 MB.
They can easily do 5 Mbps without realizing the difference. Chances are high, when the internet person came selling, they had the money. And this person told them, this is the fastest. Before you click, it has clicked for you. And they were like, oh, so how much? That I can afford. And they paid. But look at your utilization. There's some people who pay for pay TV, premium package. But the last time they used their TV, they cannot remember. And when we are doing these one-on-one sessions, sometimes it gets to that level where I have to take you through your life. You begin seeing your life through your own eyes, but the eyes you have not been seeing your own life through. So sometimes you go through, say, analysis of your entertainment. So we come to your TV in your home. So what type of TV do you have? I have a smart TV. All right. So you have access to YouTube, Netflix, and all that. Yes. All right. Do you have pay TV? You say, yes, I have pay TV. Which package? The highest package. Right? So how much do you pay per month? 6,000, whatever amount every month. Fantastic. All right. What time do you usually watch TV? Jioni tu nikitoka job. So mostly ni 9 nikiwatch news. Okay, which channels do you watch news on? Local channels. All right. So when last did you, or why did you buy this package? Nilikuwa nataka kuwatch ball, boss. Okay. When was the last time you watched ball?
At home.
In your house. Ball, boss, unajua ball uingia ukiwatch na wenzako. Okay, so why were you buying it? All right. So we can now say, averagely, you watch TV at 9 and you consume local channels. Do you also realize that your smart TV came with the capability to decode local frequencies? Oh, by the way. So in other words, you've been pouring 5,000, 6,000 every month to the service provider for a service you're not consuming. Wastefulness. It is not bad to subscribe for those things. Subscribe if they add value to you. But where you're just giving out money because you afford is part of the reasons why our income starts struggling, starts screaming, especially when the cost of living goes up. You realize, hey, I am struggling. And that's why I started this conversation that I call Managing Life on Strained Income. My latest book, Staying Financially Afloat, is actually just giving tips on how to survive the current situation. Make the burden a bit bearable, even as we wait for things to change. What adjustments can you make at home, within yourself, and common sense things, simple things? Like I told you, I don't like complicating life. So I go to your living room, I help you begin to analyze your living room. So that what I'm trying to do there is to trigger the kind of thinking you can begin to have. So that when...
Basic financial
thinking. So that when life, cost of living goes up, then before we scream, before we cry, before we give up, before we point a finger to the economy, we are able, first of all, to analyze our own personal economies. Have I allowed my money to do the most it can do for me? What are some of the changes I can make so that I face this burden slightly in a bearable way than someone who is blind to these realities? So it's important that we begin to analyze our wastefulness, minimize it, so that we optimize what our money can be doing for us. And that will take us a long way.
All right. Before now we go to, of course, diagnosis, it needs to be that people who actually they're struggling with debt or they have a debt problem, but they don't know. So, of course, I want us to go to diagnosis, self-diagnosing. How do you know when you really have a debt problem? Even a coach comes and tells you, by the way, you have a bad habit. Now, there are, of course, very basic habits that we have, especially as Kenyans. One is, what you're saying is then you can afford, 5K, in sawa, there's no EOC shida. I'm a 3K, unasema internet pesa ngapi? 10K, I can pay it. Small money. Then there is, ushaikunywa pombe?
Yes.
Umekuwa mlevi?
Sana.
Monday, asubuhi, ama Sunday. After weekend from Friday, Easter. Ukipitianga statement.
Yes.
Ya M-Pesa.
Unaona vitu zingine.
Statement ya M-Pesa. Unashinda kwani huyu nani alikuwa anatumia simu?
Nani huyu?
Nani alikuwa anatumia simu? That is number 2. Number one hiyo, money that you think you can let go of.
Yes.
Unasema, hii. Nikwambia sasa hiyo, ni aje bro. Nipea 2K. In your head you're like, 2K can afford to lose it. You know that thing of I can afford to lose it. Secondly is, of course, morning after. The morning after. And thirdly, are expenses that you cannot run away from. For instance, I was looking at things that money that you spend on impulse because you need it. One of the things, of course, that you spend on, especially for a man, majorly, I would say, for myself, money that I spend and I think I deserve to spend it. Fuel.
Yes.
So you'd find the other day I was doing my calculation for fuel, and I realized that on average, and I've not done maybe the long trips out of town. I've not come the long trips maybe over Easter. I've done several rounds that you're always fueling. You're not even knowing how much you're fueling. You see your gauge is down, unaongeza 5K, unaongeza hivyo. Sasa sijafanya hiyo. Just Nairobi running. On average, I would say maybe I probably spend between 2,000 to 2,500 shillings a day on fuel.
Yes.
And you don't see it.
Yes.
Until you sit down and you're like, by the way, because it's not money that you spend at once. But then again, it's an expense that you feel you cannot run away from. I have to fuel either way. But cumulatively, you find the problem you could be spending more than 60,000 a month on fuel. 60,000 a month on fuel. You've not added in on the trips that you're doing, because Kenyans will have road trips. Ujaongeza story ya Vasha, ujaongeza na Manga, ujaongeza upige trip wena na Nyuki, ujapiga hesabu zote. On average too, Nairobi running, 60,000. So those are costs that you feel you cannot avoid. You're like, I deserve. It's costs that you deserve to spend on. So I would want you to take us through those 3 phases. First of all is money that you feel you can always lose. 5K. It's how you don't even think much about it. Secondly is the morning after.
Yes.
And thirdly are those expenses that you feel you deserve to spend on. But then again, cumulatively, you realize that you're stuck in that cycle. You're not moving. It's like you're just servicing a lifestyle.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you.
Yes.
Money you feel you can easily lose, you can part with. I tie it with what I've just mentioned, the wastefulness, because you can afford something, or because the value of the amount, the cost of something looks like it's a small amount. Does not necessarily mean that you need to spend it always. Okay, and sometimes it's good for you to be playing the tape backwards. At the end of a period, to examine where has your money gone. And for many people, it will be difficult to remember. And that's why I often suggest what I call tracking your expenses. On a daily basis, you can just try it. It will not be easy in the beginning if you've not been doing it. A few days you'll be forgetting. But just just give it a try. At the end of the day, try to remind yourself how you spend your money. And note it down. These days we have apps on app stores for money management. Just note down. I fueled 1,000. I added 2,000. I did this. I gave another person money. This much every day. By the time you do that for 7 days, we have started seeing results. 30 days usually startle people. Many people. You will see figures that you will utashanga. You mean I spend this much money on this? I had a case one day, and I like sharing these cases mostly because the owners have allowed me to share them. There is a lady I met in the one-on-one session, and she's struggling with debt to a point where it was starting to be suicidal. And so I look at the story, and I'm wondering, nitaingilia wapi kwa hii story? Because everything seems to be very tight. When the session was coming to an end, I threw a funny question in the air. I asked her, by the way, how much money do you spend on coffee? And she's like, give or take 3K thereabout. Okay. And I tell her, let us begin to track your expenditure. We shall have a review session after 30 days. And so every day, just note down how you spend your money. When we met for the review session, I got to the venue earlier than she did. And when she was coming, she started talking from the door. It was a public place, and she started talking from the door. Coach, no way. And then she sat. So I asked her, no way what? She tells me, there is no way I can be spending this money on coffee. Remember, she had said give or take 3,000. Do you know how much she had spent on coffee that month? 25,000 shillings. But that gave her realization. Where I told her, look, the reason I tasked you to do that exercise is not so that you stop taking coffee. But she told me, before you say anything, I will not spend more than 3,000 shillings on coffee this month. That's not, my work as a coach is not to dictate for you. It's just to help open your eyes to see some things. But now she can set limits and now say, hey, I want to be conscious not to spend 3K. Another person will say, I want to be conscious not to spend 5K on this particular indulgence. So that means your antennas are now high. Maybe because you afforded, every time you go out, you want to make a statement. So you're the one paying bills.
What you're doing, you actually have meetings in hotels.
Yes. So you're the one paying bills for everyone. When you go out with your friends, just because you can afford, bill ikikuja, ini how much? 1,000. Okay, intasort. So you've been the Father Christmas of everyone in your circles. When you sit down to analyze, you might discover, oh, by the way, part of why I'm struggling is because I've been Father Christmas for everyone. Now, and I've had many cases of such people. With time, this simple behavior can neutralize you. Because when you get stuck, it will lure you into borrowing for consumption. You have not addressed the habit, you are borrowing for consumption to continue financing that particular habit. When you get trapped in debt, it gets even worse. And now you will be forced not to appear where you used to appear. Psychologically, it begins to affect you because you've been a social person, you've been everywhere, sorting bills and what have you. Now you can't go because you can't sort the bills. So you want to isolate. And you don't want to open up. You don't want to tell people what you're going through. That might eat you up. And then there is also the danger that you might even find yourself in other habits. Some people have been tempted to try gambling. You know, because of that, they are now stuck. Something tells them if they gamble, they can win big money, sort out their debt mess, now waendelee. And before you know it, because gambling is a menace we must talk about, you realize that you have started even selling property. I had a very special case I have handled before of someone who was affluent, very affluent. And this person had even rental property that was giving them rental income upwards of 500,000 Kenya shillings every month. They had state-of-the-art and high-flying vehicles, but they got trapped in debt because when they started struggling because of this habit, because we went through history and we discovered they're the ones who would pay for bills for all their friends. Mpaka marafiki sasa wamekuwa na dependence. So every Friday, the friends are calling you, not because you are going out and on a meaningful thing so that you will finance. Hey, you weekend to Naivasha. Hey, okay. So budgeting, but when it's time to pay the bill, they are not there. So you've been doing it for them until you are stuck. Then you started borrowing. First, the person ate, the businessman, biashara ikaanguka. Now starts borrowing even for lifestyle. Na kaanza kuenda into gambling. Gets addicted into gambling. The same behavior, even at the gambling tables, this person is the one even buying slots for their friends.
For the other gamblers.
Same behavior. And then the person starts selling property to finance gambling.
The new habit now.
So it can degenerate into a level we don't want to get. So like I have said, just try tracking your expenditure. There's a powerful way it speaks to you. You do it for 7 days, you will start talking to yourself. You will discover how much mandazi eats from you. You will discover how much bus fare. Yes, that might trigger you to change a few things. Number 2, you talked about the morning after. Now, the morning after shocks many people. But as it shocks you, let it be a wake-up call. Okay? How come every Monday you're asking, nani alikuwa na simu yangu? Okay? So how can you begin to manage this habit? Right? And we have come up sometimes with very simple ways, including crude ways such as, because I told you financial discipline is not happening overnight. Sometimes you begin to nip it in the bud. So there are times we say, hey boss, kama kubeba simu yako ya M-Pesa inakuletea hii shida. When you are going out, can you count the money you want to go and spend? Convert it into cash. Beba. Wachana na hiyo simu. Kama lazima ubebe simu line ambayo haina pesa for communication purposes. Then go. We can start there. We get as basic as ikiisha unajua imeisha. Then also observe your friends. Kama umefika ile level ya every bill ikifika wote wanaanza kuenda washroom. And if you play the tape backwards, you realize you've been the ones settling bills. Begin to reevaluate your friendship. Some of your friends, you might need to shift them and or task them to also, just share the bill equally or something like that, unless you have decided you're treating someone, which is a different conversation. So for me, the morning after should be a wake-up call that, hey, if I continue this way, things are going to be chaotic for me. Which one was number 3?
Those expenses you cannot run away.
Oh yes, those ones that you cannot run away. Yes, they will also be sorted by option 1. Option 1 will help you to reveal that, hey, you are in this mess. The one for tracking your expenses. However, remedy, you can begin to plan your expenditure. This is how much money I want to spend on this. Begin to plan your activities as well.
Mafuta ikiisha anza
story ya mafuta sasa hapo ndo nimekuja. Plan your day. This is what I do, because at some point I also suffered the same. So I started asking so in the evening before I start my day tomorrow, I'm planning for my day. So I know these are the appointments I have for tomorrow. So I'll be Ngong Road, I'll go to Ngara, I'll go to Thika Road, I'll go to this other place. So what I do, so I do my estimation. So from home to Ngong Road, how many kilometers? Ngong Road to Ngara to, then I give an allowance that I might find myself going to another place I did not plan. So roughly, how much fuel will I be needing? Then historically, I'm now able to see, this month I spent fuel this much, this month this much, this month this much. So I have some rough idea how much fuel I'll spend. But why I'm saying you plan your trips is so that usipige trip muenda. Trip muenda ni zile trip umetoka Mombasa Road. You know you have someone you will see along Ngong Road. You're going to Waiyaki Way. And you have some flexibility. Not that the Waiyaki Way must come number 1. If there is that room, then arrange your trips in such a way that zinafuatana kwa hiyo njia. So that you don't go to Waiyaki Way. Then suddenly you remember Ngong Road or Mombasa Road. Unachapa Mombasa Road. Alafu unatoka Mombasa Road unakumbuka Thika Road. Unaingia kwa jam mahali. Unachapa Thika Road. So if you can start planning for your activities, before the day comes, it will help you. It's not an easy thing, but with time, you start getting used to it, and it starts being part of you. So for me as a routine, every day before I sleep, I am checking my diary to see what do I have tomorrow, where, roughly, how much fuel will I be needing if assuming I am to power that particular day alone. But even where I have, say, just put a full tank to be running my errand. So nijipange aje, nitaanzia wapi, which ones are fixed? If we have this show that is at 7, is fixed. So which one can I push later? Okay, so kuna mtu labda angekuwa wa 8 mahali kwingine, nimpeleke 10. Okay, so that nikitoka hapa najua I'm going to this other place and this other place. That will also help you to address number 3. Those expenses you feel ni sawa. Usually I like saying in class that unapata pesa imeisha, haukumbuki iliisha aje, and then you tell yourself at least sikutumia vibaya. But here is the thing, haukutumia vibaya kweli, lakini hauna. Imeisha. You have 25 days looking at you before the next money. So please just begin to introduce some order step by step. It will not happen overnight, by the way. I am not even where I wish to be in terms of managing my activities and my money personally. Yet I've been doing it for a while. But when I look back to where I was and where I am today, there's a big difference because of the new habits that I had to learn, which have really helped me.
Okay. Yeah. On that note, if I told you that actually that money that you're spending on a drink every Saturday, you could spend it on your farm. Kama wewe unalisha nguruwe. Badala ya kuacha nguruwe ikimanga-manga na unakunywa whisky. Wewe unakunywa Glen ama sijui Singleton ama Johnny Walker. Na uko na nguruwe umeweka nyumbani na manga-manga haina chakula. Nakula kichakani. Ama uko na kuku wamekaa njaa, there's no food that you're feeding them. Then iko shida. What if I told you that money that you spend on all the wrong things that you're spending money on every single weekend, you can use it to get a bag of Fugo feeds from Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. You can use that money. Yoka 5,000, maka 10,000 unakunywa. Unanua 50 kgs. Yeah, animal feeds. Kama ni nguruwe, kama unafuga nguruwe, unachakula ya nguruwe wako anatoka vizuri, body weight inakuwa safi. Kienda sokoni, nyama inakuja fresh. Kama wewe pia unafanya mambo ya if you're doing chicken, you can get your Fugo layers from Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. Yoka pesa ambao ungekuwa umepoteza hapa katikati. Ama kunywa kawa necessarily without a plan, you can actually ensure you can spend it on quality feeds from Fugo Feeds Limited by Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. And we're telling you that malezi bora unapata mapato zaidi if you're feeding your animals. Kama unalisha kuku wako, ama unalisha ng'ombe wako, ama unalisha nguruwe wako, ama unalisha every other animal that you rearing at home, you're feeding them with quality feeds from Fugo Feeds ama Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. Unahakikisha kwamba mifugo wako wanakuwa afya zaidi. If you're doing chicken, body weight ya chicken inakuwa safi zaidi. Kama unafanya layers, kuku inatoka mayai sokoni inaenda kabisa zaidi. If you're doing cows, you can get your Fugo dairy animal feeds from East Africa, Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. Please ensure that money is good waste. You can use it for a better thing to do. Fugo feeds, malezi bora, mapato zaidi. Kama unafanya samaki pia tuko na Fugo tilapia. You can get your Fugo tilapia from the nearest agro-fed. Hakikisha kwamba unapata bidhaa halisi. Ensure that you can get quality real feeds from Fugo Feeds ama Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. So please ensure that you can spend your money in all the right places by ensuring you can buy from Fugo Feeds. Na naona kuna mtu ananiona lakini ananipigia simu. Aniache hata nipumzike kidogo. Haya, let's see who is up. Mother's Guitar. There are things that are out of control, such as how the economy will perform. But we can control our habits. That's true. Taylor Potters watching from Eldoret. Thank you, Alan Kogo. Convention is late and educative. Thank you, Pauline Cherov. Civil borrowing is okay. I planned for or aiming a demand need. Jibinda Anderson watching from Bugoma. Thank you, Chacha B. If you only depend on your salary, you are one step away from poverty. Get you a side hustle, however small. Thank you so much, Chacha. Successful people borrow. Borrow if you have a good plan. Don't fear borrowing. Okay. Mother's Guitar reliance on one source of income is catastrophic. The cycle of borrowing is very addictive and slavery. No one resulting to being a perpetual liar. Correct. CK Dan, how can you settle down when you know the limit of qualifies 50K and the money will come to you ASAP? I think we've spoken on that as well. Keep Victor. Great conversations. Up kwa limits. Great advice. Chacha B, Live within your means. Don't strain the payslip or that income. If you're in business, don't eat the profit for a while. Reinvest. Okay, that's wisdom. Rich people. I think I've lost a comment. Rich people save money for the wealthy ones to borrow and invest assets. Do not put all your money in the bank. Other people will use it. Invest instead in assets. Remember. All right. Okay. Blessing something here. Keep quiet, Chariot. There's always an appetite for borrowing when you get to borrowing. Then again, you become never-ending borrower. As much as we borrow, let's deal with short-time solution as not to burden us. Pauline Cherub, Gerald, this topic is very, very educative, an eye-opener to learn so much on debt and achieving potential out of it. Thanks for bringing this topic, an expert to teach us. God bless. Thank you. Just B, borrowing needs rationality. You can't borrow to pay school fees, liabilities, borrow to invest. Wow. Okay. I think we'll get to that, what to borrow for and what not to borrow for. Moses Kekitao, there is a point beyond which you can't cut expenses, but there is no upper limit on how much you can make. Salary has a limit. Income has no limit unless you put a limit on it. Moses Kekitao, you can even turn off those push notifications and block those senders who keep on pestering you with a borrowing invitation. Silas, good to see you. Silas Kisora Nyanchwani, good to see you, brother. As a lovely conversations, very realistic suggestions. Thank you. Moses Jitao, avoid being wasteful. Kipchumba K. Dan, who director pale NYS. Now I'm a Gerald, this gentleman is my greatest friend. He has really helped me out with his teachings. I'm a serious follower of his coaching. Say I to him. As a director pale NYS. Fuel is a killer, I'm telling you. Can you please say much about it? Fuel, jipange. Lakini unaweza panga mipangilio yako inashikana kidogo. Serone Junior, this debate is great as a technician. You killed it with Fugo Feeds. Yes. Badala kukunywa pombe nunulia chakula mifugo. Ng'ombe yako hata ana chumvi nyumbani. Ng'ombe kwa nyumbani amekonda.
Yes.
Mapafu zinaonekana. Lakini uko taro unapiga sherehe, unakula java, unakula burger, unakula steak, unateremsha na whiskey. Na ng'ombe hata haina chumvi.
Unatafuta years of brewing.
Ama kuku wako bwana wanahangaika mtaani. Sasa Joe sema good morning, people's power. It's because I'm the baddest manager. Amekubali, amesema the reason why is broke hata tena ameamua tena hata laumu uchumi tena. Ameachana na uchumi, amepiga hesabu akaona shida mali iko. Ni yeye. Bad financial manager. All right. Watu wanaanza kufanya confessions mapema. Thank you so much for making those confessions. Actually, after this, you realize that you are the problem with your finances, not the economy as it is now. I think with all these conversations, it's 29 minutes past 9. We'll add some 30 minutes on that. We usually finish at 9:30, but because we started late, we'll add another 10 minutes. All right. And I would want you to speak on things to borrow for and things not to borrow for. There has been, I met a gentleman and we were having an argument. We usually have like a boys thing we do sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes this time we had gone to Unga CEOs, it's called Chage.
Chage.
So tulienda kwa Chage, of course kulima pool kidogo na kula kanyama na kuongea story. So a conversation comes up on home ownership.
Yes.
And Chage was saying there's no way I'm ever going to buy a house or take a mortgage for a home. And he was making, for the first time, for me, I've always imagined that, of course, having a home is more security. You're more secure, you're more safe. There's a level of how stable your life can get when you have a home. But his argument was somehow making sense. He was saying that if I have 20 million, if you have an asset that is worth 20 million that you're living in, what does it give you? Nothing. What options do you have in terms of moving out and going to live in another area? Let's assume when you ulikuwa unakula hizo madeni zako na Shailo kuko, ulikuwa umechukua Shailo kukanua nyumba pala Alego Siaya. Sasa umepika transfer Nairobi, unakuja tena kurent nyumba. Unatembea na hiyo nyumba. And the issues of flexibility. Maybe you bought a house in Kitengela. Now you're feeling like you want to live in Kilelesho. And you put maybe 20 million there in a home. And you have to live at home. Probably on average, it will give you a rent of 60,000. And that's 20 million that is stuck there. And maybe you've taken it on mortgage. So maybe monthly repayments are around 100,000. And you're paying for 30 years.
Yes.
25 years. So this was a very serious argument.
Yes.
And up to now, we have not agreed exactly on whether you should borrow for a home or you should spend money on buying a home or you should not. Nothing, of course, is borrowing for the things that you think you need. A car, because you're like, I need to be mobile. You know, I need some level of convenience. So I would want you to speak on that house thing because it's an argument. And I know Choge could be watching now. He was the ambassador of that thing that me, there's no way I'm buying a house. Then now on the flip side is things that you should borrow for and things that you should not even try to borrow for.
Wow. Let me begin by confirming that you will not agree. On that discussion, you will not agree. You may hold that discussion for a very long time, but there will not be consensus world over. And I have thought about it for a long time, and I realized we have two kinds of people. There are people I call comfort-oriented people. Comfort-oriented people. These people, for them, the thought of coming from their own home is everything. Not thinking about where that decision will leave them. Because sometimes you may feel happy that you're coming from your own home and eventually you will leave that home because it's a decision you made and it was a crippling decision, but you didn't know. We live in a society where if society hears that you own a home or you bought a home, everyone will respect you, everyone will clap for you.
You've achieved.
But you might also have messed. So we have the guys who are comfort-oriented. For them, the first thing they will present in this argument is peace of mind. Hey boss, unatoka kwako, haulipi mtu rent, how, you know those things. You have the flexibility of just knowing, nimefunga geti yangu mimi mwenyewe, you know those things. So for them, those people will not listen to any other argument advanced. Truth is, it is good to at some point in life to know you have your home. You know, this is home for me. We may not be renting forever. At some point, we will retire. We will need to go somewhere. All right? But not every decision to have a home is a prudent decision. Some of them leave us burning our fingers. For example, there is someone who has taken a mortgage to buy a house or to build a house somewhere. The time they were taking a mortgage, they did not think through the borrowing process. Something else I teach called purpose-driven borrowing, where I try to share the ideal borrowing process. And because you are buying a house, you thought it is automatically a good idea. And that's why I'm usually keen. There are people who will shoot this question. Is buying a home, borrowing for a home, good debt or bad debt? I do not answer that question.
Why?
I will explain. So I usually will tell you, you can buy a home or borrow for a home, but you borrow blindly. Here is how, and I've made practical examples. I've actually been one of those examples. So because you qualify for a house, it's a mortgage of 50,000, 100,000. So they've looked at your pay slip, they've said you qualify. But you qualify after they have stretched your pay slip to the limit. And therefore, you are earning, say, 100,000 or 80,000 net. Now, they have squeezed out 50 or 60,000 for home ownership. You are now left with 20-something thousand or 30,000 for survival. Before you take this mortgage, you have been surviving on your net coin to coin. Maybe you've not even been saving. You've not been able to do any other thing. It has been just enough to sustain you. Now, 60 out of it has gone to give you a home. Maybe that time you are living in a rented house where you are paying 25,000 per month. But now you've gone to pay in installments of 60 from 25. So that leaves you with a small disposable income of, say, 30,000. The truth is, this 30,000 cannot sustain you, your operations. We have not even examined the fact that you have now moved further away from your working station. So your transportation money is going to grow. Your budget for transport is going to grow.
Rent,
mahali karibu na job.
Sasa umeenda kuchukua mortgage
Kangundo Road. So transport fare ndio hiyo ama mafuta itaongezeka. That time you didn't think about it. When you go to your own compound, depending on where it is, there are some incidental costs you must think about. Things like service charge. You may never have thought about it. Now it is here with us. Things like security. Maybe where you are, you need to pay a security person in your neighborhood, or those things. Now you need to think about it. And so on and so forth. You never thought about it. So that means the demand even on the remaining 30,000 is bigger. It's bigger than the usual. The 30 is not enough to handle what has been the usual. And now you have new things coming in to demand from the same 30. And that's how, unfortunately, many new homeowners find themselves getting into consumer debt immediately after they move into their house, especially if they did not think through the borrowing process. Very many of them have sat with countless people who we can trace that their financial struggle started with the decision to borrow for home ownership. So it may not be bad to borrow for home ownership, but think through the decision very well, and ask yourself, will I be able to survive without the need to borrow for consumption when I am in my new home? There is no point rushing to own it, and then tomorrow, because you're struggling with debt, you put it on sale, or it comes to be auctioned. Okay? Because you will lose the home. I've been auctioned before myself, and I know the pain of auction. I have worked with many people who are going through the pain of auction, to just get to see how to manage the same. So think through the decision. If you are a comfort-oriented person, we know there is nothing we can say that will make sense to you. But just think through the decision so that your timing is correct. You don't just borrow for home because you qualify to borrow for a home. Think about your life after you have moved into your home. Figure it out. Once you are able to figure it out, as we have nothing on you, you go have your comfort and stay in your place. Good. The second category of people are what I call the wealth creation-oriented people. Okay. Now, this is where Choge plugs in. The wealth creation-oriented people are people who are very mathematical in their thinking when it comes to this conversation. And they are asking themselves, if I have 20 million, like you said, and I sink it in a house that I will be living in, what is the opportunity cost? If I would have put this 20 million elsewhere, probably the returns from that place would enable me even finance my construction slowly, but I still have my 20 million. I have not sunk it and in one go to just come up with a house that I'll be living in. These guys will be very mathematical. They want to make sure it is making sense. And sometimes it disturbs me. For example, I have, just the other day I was passing somewhere. I think it was in Kilimani or somewhere. And I saw 2-bedroomed houses being sold at, I think, 20 million somewhere, a 2-bedroom house. So I inquired, how much rent is a 2-bedroomed house here? And I was told it ranges from, I think, 45K to 60K. So in my mathematical mind, I'm looking at 20 million, giving you 45,000 or 50,000 per month. How long will it take to recover the 20 million? And I'm saying, okay, for investment's sake, someone has bought this for investment. How about I move a bit further from Kilimani into somewhere else where the same 20 million can give me 3 similar units. Okay? 3 similar units whose rental income is not 50, but maybe 30,000 per month, and I have 30 times 3, which is 90. So both of us have invested in property, and we have rented it out. One is getting 50,000, but another one is getting 90, using the same amount, okay? I'm just throwing this in to show how the wealth creation-oriented people want to think. So those people will not jump into a mortgage before they ask themselves, what else can this money do? Or what other approach can I use to own a home, even if I want a home? Do I just borrow money and get a home and get into it? Or can I borrow money, put it into something else, and then use the returns? I'll have the patience. I can be renting, I have no problem, but I'll have the patience to use the returns from where I have put my money to now start constructing. Pole. It might take me a year or two, then I'll move into my house. I am okay. All right? So they'll always be thinking about the opportunity cost. What else can this money be doing? And that's why I say timing is crucial here. Timing. It is good to own your home, but please balance your timing. And again, there's no particular age or time we will say, nunua nyumba ukifika hapa. Timing here means look at your circumstances and make sure that home ownership is not going to bring you trouble. Is going to help you enjoy. You are owning so that you know a part of you can feel, yes, I have achieved something. So then go into it and go into it. Don't go into it and then kidogo inaanza kukutuma kwa Shiloh because reductions imeingia na shida imeingia. Thank you so much.
Na nyumba pia kanaenda. Na nyumba pia kanaenda. Nyumba for 20 years.
Yes.
Or for 23 years. Sasa imebaki 2 years.
Na kanaenda.
Mambo kanaharibika. So they come back, they say they want the house, they repossess and sell it. So I mean, all these things usually happens. I'm saying we're tight on time, 42 minutes. Now, in 3 minutes, just tell us through the self-diagnosis. How do I know
that you're struggling?
Yeah, how do I know that I'm actually struggling with that?
Wow. I'll just mention them quickly, a few of them. There are very many. But if they will look for the book, Breaking Free from the Trap of Debt, I know they will get very many. Number one, if your total debt repayment is bigger than your income, you've borrowed from many people, one is expecting 3K, another one 5, another one 7. In total, when you get your pay, the people you owe money are requesting for 28,000, yet your pay is 22,000. It's an indicator things might be thick. Number two, if you are a perennial borrower of short-term debt is salary advance, app loans, Mshwari, Fuliza, credit card, all those things, the ones you take for a month, for a week, for 2 weeks, and all those. If you're a perennial, you pay now, you borrow now, like that, it's a big indicator that there is trouble. You know, short-term debt came to address emergencies, things that find you flat-footed. It cannot be that you face emergencies every day of your life. It's an indicator that things are thick in your life. Number three, if you discover that you recently are paying your bills late. You live in a rented place, your landlord tells you the deadline is 5th. But if you look backward, 3 months, 6 months, you've been paying on 10th, 15th. Sometimes you have to craft a story, an interesting story. You have to tell your landlord, one of the signatories to our paycheck has gone to South Africa, kabla assign, kwa hivyo hatujalipwa. Yet you know you never get paid using physical checks. There is trouble.
Wengine wanasema tulikuwa na msiba.
Tulikuwa na msiba. By the way, when you are trapped in debt, you will kill relatives. Yes, you will admit very many in hospitals.
Bako wanarudia kwa uwa.
Baka unaanza kuwaua wengine, baka watu wanashangaa na si huyu nafikiria alikuwa amekufa. You know things like those.
I thought your uncle died in June. Ndio unamuua tena.
It gets bad. Number 4. If you discover that you are neglecting to fix, to repair, to service possessions that you have that require repair, service, and things like those for a long time, chances are very high that there is trouble in your house. For example, you have a car, it needs to be serviced, you know it's due for service. But as you're listening to us, it has gone, isha chapa saiko moja, isha fuatilia, as long as inasonga, wewe unasonga tu nayo. There is
bora inawaka.
Bora inawaka. There is trouble. First of all, you're attracting a bigger problem, but let's not even go there. It's an indicator that things
are not well with you.
Are not well with you. Number 5, another thing that you can look at and begin to see that things are bad. If any of your debt is in arrears of more than one repayment cycle, okay? You may be having 10 loans, 9 are performing very well, but one is in arrears of 2 cycles and beyond. Chances are very high that things are not working for you. And maybe one last one, number 6, which is usually a hilarious one, but this one I usually get a lot of personal responses on. Watu wengi wanasema nimewasaidia sana. If you neglect replenishing your undergarment wardrobe.
Hey, kwanza naomba Mungu usifaint.
Naomba Mungu usifaint mbele ya watu. Saa zile unaenda kukavaa, ukitoa kwa drawer ama ukivuruta pale juu ama ukitoa kule unatoa, wengine wako
iko na ventilation
chini ya mattress, ukikaangalia hivi unaona kako na ventilation, wewe mwenyewe unajiambia yenyewe kama beat, alafu unajikumbusha hawataona. Kweli hatutaona, lakini wewe umeona. Chances are very high that things are thick. Thank you so much, my brother. I wish you would say this.
Lakini story ya nini nguo ya ndani. Zingine for men it's unajua unaona kwa watu busy sana.
Wanaume tunaelewa.
Watu busy sana. Kufikiria uende.
Actually, when I share these indicators, I usually say
most men have an average of 2 to 300.
Yes, even if you buy them 20. There will be mark timing around 2 to 3 of them. I usually say this. It is not that if any one indicator applies to you, you're automatically trapped. However,
there is a range.
If 4 and above
1, 2, 3
apply to you, sasa hapo, it's a wake-up call for you to give attention to your financial story.
All right. I don't know, the men watching this morning, I don't know how you can self-evaluate.
Yes.
So if, for instance, coach is saying, how is your underwear looking like this morning? What is the state of the nation of your underwear? Iko na ventilations. Kama iko na ventilations, unajua kuna mashida mingi. Hadi ukifikiria kwenda kutumia hiyo 500. Unajua siku hizi pia imepanda bei. Unapata moja ni $5.
Yes.
So kama iko na ventilation kibao,
bas,
ama miaka imesonga nayo kidogo, ukifikiria last time you bought a new underwear is 3 years ago.
Kula chumvi.
Then iko shida. Yaani ukipata underwear yako is older than the government of the day.
Kuna shida.
Kuna shida kidogo. There's a problem. I hope you've had a good conversation this morning. We've been, of course, on Mondays we talk about your life and money. And I'll help your life and your finances and help you make better decisions in managing your life and also managing your finances. Because without that, then iko shida kidogo. If you don't fix those things, so very basic things, then you cannot win the bigger things. And I think the biggest mistake that we have, especially as men, is to imagine that we can handle the big things without handling the small things.
Correct.
You're like, this one can wait. But then again, you find that you cumulatively those small things become big things. You know, it is that you even start struggling with those now, the small things that have become big things, and you find that you cannot manage them. And you've also again you started picking up big things. So it's a mix. It's a cocktail of crazy things that you can handle. Yeah.
Complicated affair.
So while we agree that things are tough, sometimes we need to fix things that you can fix. I think for me, my biggest, by the way I usually gauge things, my decision say, okay, I usually ask myself, what is the worst that can happen if I don't get this?
Yes.
If it's maybe something that I need to get. I'm one of those very emotional buyers. I buy with passion. If I want a car, a certain car,
yes,
I'll never sleep. I keep thinking, okay, I'll need to buy this. I'll have to buy this car. And then a single opportunity that comes, I would want to do that.
Yes.
And then you start, struggling with those decisions. And also sometimes you get so passionate and emotional about something that you're like, I cannot afford to lose it. Mtu akikwambia hii inaenda.
Yes.
Mtu akikwambia ati hii kashamba. Hii kashamba hii kuna mtu anataka kuilipia. Kuna mtu alikuwa anataka kulipia jana. You go out of your way.
Yes.
To get that. And then again, some of the things that we need to fix is that thing that you want to imagine, that emergency buying. Ili kitu nyukanda a lot of pressure. Nakwambia Roy, hii usipoleta pesa ya hii kitu leo. Hii gari leo usipolipia leo. Kesho huwezi pata. Ama kitu fulani usipofanya hivi inaenda. Those pressure buying. Find that you're not buying because you're doing it at your comfort or because you feel you're under pressure to get what you want. But you don't have enough resources to do that. And you end up again getting in that cycle where it even becomes another cost. Kama ni deni unaenda unachukua kadeni mahali kanaendelea ku accumulate, becomes a bigger problem. So I think every other person has their own meter gauge of gauging what they want.
Yes.
For me, it's what is the worst. If I don't get this thing, what is the worst that can happen to me? So if the worst is something I can live with, fine. This thing can wait. What is the worst if I don't get this and that? So maybe you also need to develop your own personal measure of decision on what you need to get.
Sure.
And by the way, you don't need to have everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, you can
You find that by the unapata.
Even if you want.
Hata ile kitu ulikuwa unang'ang'ana nayo ulikuwa unataka, after you have it you're like, I didn't even need it.
So ni hivi ndio inakaa.
Kumbe hata sikuwa nahitaji kitu. Ng'ang'ana unapata, kumbe actually didn't need this. Umeenda umeng'ang'ana hapo ulikuwa na 1,000 ama 500, umeona kuku ikizunguka hapo na mafuta hapo tao. Unaenda unaspend, unamaliza unagundua kumbe unafaa utembee mguu uende nyumbani. Then you're like, kumbe hata ningekula hata kangumu. So in the bigger picture, the simple things that you look at, I mean, in the bigger picture, you realize that there's a better way that you could have around it. It's always a pleasure to have you. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much, sir, for honoring our invite. We hope to have you more often and get to speak to these Kenyans on how well they can manage their finances, because it's a crisis. And even the country itself needs these lessons that we're speaking about. As you're speaking, the country is also saying, hata sisi, by the kama inchi ingekuwa mtu, ingekuwa inakula breakfast na lunch na dinner.
Ni ukweli. Sahi ingekuwa pabaya.
Ingekuwa inafunga na kuomba.
Sahi.
Ingekuwa ina fast by fire by time. So things are difficult, but yes, you realize that there are things that you can live without. If there's something that you can unburden yourself from, better for you. And there's no shame. Najua, the problem is that most people live for the glitz, and for the glam.
Yes.
And for the optics, for you to be seen, you want to drive a certain car, you want to live in certain places so that you can be seen. You want to continue struggling with things. You want to continue going to restaurants that maybe utake kwenda kwa kibanda. Ama mtu anakwenda kwa kibanda, kumbe unakulanga huko. Kuna mambo zingine ndio kula kuku huko. Unapata na raia sema, kumbe unakulanga huko. I'm like, sasa ndio umekuja. Sasa umekuja.
Sasa uko hapa.
Ala mimi nimekuja kukula kuku. So I mean, live life on your own terms.
Yeah.
That's power. That's own power. Live life on your own terms. That is the biggest power you'll ever have. So live life on your own terms. Kama ni vitu lazima uchukue basi ikuwe ya kwamba because you really need it and you've made the decision without any external influence whatsoever. Pia mtu asikupe pressure. Unaweza enda bar pia na ukunywe chupa moja ya bia kuanzia asubuhi mpaka jioni ukiwa na ball. Si lazima ukunywe mzinga. Nana lisema. Lazima ufulize ndio unaona mzinga. Ndio atakuja na mzinga. Yes.
Carrying the register.
And actually,
watu wa mzinga.
And you realize that actually there are also habits you can kill.
Yeah.
Must you drink? And you don't have money. Si lazima. Kunywa Christ. And you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Masaa pia itaenda.
Yes. Itasonga. Kama ni muziki utasikia.
Kama ni mpira utaona. Kama watu wengine.
Yes. We can actually replace our indulgences with positive ones. Yeah, it is possible.
And actually, by the way, think about it. Kipiganga sababu ya pesa unapeleka ba inaia. Jaribu kupiga hesabu haja tukusaidie leo. Piga hesabu leo. Let's say every weekend you spend 20,000. Now calculate it and imagine how much you can do with it. Well, at it, that 20,000 that you could drink at the bar, still want to remind you that you can ensure that you can get something for your farm. You can buy food for your nguruwe. You wache kumanga ikula takataka. Your chicken can have better feeds. Your cow in the village, that the last time it saw anything good was when, I don't know, when you can get it at Fugo Dairy this morning. Hiyo kapesa ungeenda ukunywe leo ama kesho kutwa tumana tayari ende village. Ambia maadhe, hiyo kimbia pale town Agrovet, nunua chakula ya Fugo Feeds. Utaona ng'ombe yako anakuwa shwari. Eri ukunywe pesa ya maziwa. Yes, lisha ng'ombe yako na Fugo Dairy. Alafu ukikamua basi uzapeleka sokoni. Alafu unaweza kupata afya yako. So please ensure that you can get, if you are a farmer, ensure that you can get to the nearest Agrovet and get to order Fugo Feeds by Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. These are things that we guarantee you. First of all, safety.
Correct.
Aflatoxin free. Ensure that your animals cannot get feed poisoning. Secondly, the nutritional formulation ensures that you get the best yields from your farm. Tunasema ya kwamba Fugo Feeds, tunasema malezi bora unapata mapato zaidi. Ukifanya malezi bora kutoka Fugo Feeds unapata mapato zaidi. Ensure that you get only Fugo Feeds by Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. Until tomorrow on the State of the Nation edition, this has been the Chuckle, the CommonCents edition of 17 of March 2023, and it ends now. Bye bye and see you tomorrow. We love you.